Hi guys, welcome back to Chess to Matthew. So on this video, we'll tackle about the game between Magnus Carlsen and Levan Pantsulaia on the chess journey of Magnus Carlsen on the FIDE World Cup 2023. So here Magnus Carlsen plays as white pieces and Levan Pantsulaia here is black, and Magnus Carlsen here play a move of c4, and their opening battlefield goes with the symmetrical variation of the English opening after c5. So here Magnus Carlsen play knight f3, developing a piece and controlling the center, and here Pantsulaia play the move g6, trying to pianquieto his bishop on his diagonal while controlling the dark square on the board. But here Magnus Carlsen plays an aggressive move and play the third move with d4, with an early tension on the center between c5 and d4. So here Pantsulaia plays bishop g7, allowing here for Magnus Carlsen to have a pawn capture on the c5, but later on Pantsulaia here can, for example, after pawn takes, there is queen a5 check with a double attack to the pawn and king. So here Magnus Carlsen grab a space on the center with d5, and Pantsulaia here played d6 to stop any further push of this pawn, and again Magnus Carlsen here grab another space in the center with e4, and we shall see this position now that Magnus Carlsen here has a slight advantage with a pawn on d5 that having advantage on the space on the center. So here after, for example, Pantsulaia here plays a6 on the game, in which after a6 it actually evaluates to the position that favors to Magnus Carlsen. After on this position, after e4 of Magnus Carlsen, Levan here should play bishop g5 to equalize the position, because for example after h3 there is just a simple bishop takes f3, and after queen takes f3, although the black here loses the pair of bishop, but after for example e6, and if the white here tries to force the position, for example after queen to b3, eyeing for this pawn on b7, but there is just a simple knight d7, and after for example queen grab the pawn on b7, but there is a simple rook b8, and after again the queen grab the a7 pawn, but after rook takes b2, bishop takes b2, bishop takes b2, and after bishop d3 for example, but the black here has a huge material advantage after the black here successfully grab the rook and emerge with an extra piece on the board. So after e6 for Levan, Magnus Carlsen here stop any idea of g4 bishop to g5 move with h3, and after for example knight e7, trying to develop his piece and trying to control the center, and again leaving this g7 to vacate so that the black king now can castle. And after for example developing move for Magnus Carlsen, there is just simple h6, stopping any g5 hop with the bishop or the knight, and after for example after d takes e6, bishop takes e6, Magnus Carlsen here pressure now the d6 pawn of Levan, but Levan here tries to sacrifice this pawn with an idea that he will have a rapid development. For example, after knight b to c6, queen takes, queen e5, pressurizing this knight with two attackers with only one defender. Magnus Carlsen here defend, and after for example knight to b4, here for example on this position the black should play g5 so that he can actually equalize the position. For example after bishop to h2, bishop takes, queen takes, queen takes, pawn takes, and for example after queen side castling, although the white here is still a pawn up, but the c pawn is actually a double, and the white here has a crippled pawn that it compensates for a sacrifice pawn on his position. So going back for example after queen to d2, in which Levan here just play knight to b4, and for example after a3, On this position, Magnus Carlsen can try another move, for example, by playing rook a d1, allowing this pawn to be captured because, for example, although it has only one defender with two attackers, but this is actually a poison pawn. For example, after knight takes to a2, because there is just simple rook to a1, and again, there is now two attackers to this knight. So, for example, after rook to d1, for example, if the black here just castle on the king side, but there is just simple a3, and after knight b to c6, there is just simple pawn grab on 6, and after, for example, f8, queen to c1, rook takes. Here the white can afford to lose his right to castling because he still has an extra pawn on e4. And even though the black here will give a check, but still there is just a king move, for example, king to d1, and again can start now a kingside assault after winning two pawns, not only just one. So after a3, for example, of Magnus Carlsen, the black here plays g5 on this position to attack the bishop on f4, and after the bishop retreat, rook to d1, attacking the queen, and after queen to c1, knight d3 check with a fork, so forced to grab that knight and surrendering his double bishop. But we shall see in this position now that the white here is still a pawn up on this position. So after kingside castling, bishop takes c4, and now there is an equality of material. So after knight to d5 with an open attack to the bishop, so forced to grab that knight, pawn takes, and after rook takes, we shall see on this position now that Magnus Carlsen here is a pawn down. But the black king here is still not safe on the center, so that was the compensation of the sacrifice pawn of Magnus Carlsen. So Magnus Carlsen plays rook to e1, stopping this king to castle because he will lose his knight. So after a defense with queen to d8, again queen to c4, stopping this black king to castle, because if the black castle now on the king side, there is a rook takes e7, grabbing the defender of the rook, because after queen takes e7, then queen takes to d5, although there is bishop takes to b2, but after rook to e1, again the white here is still a piece up on this position. So after queen to c4, the black here should not castle and play king to f8. So after knight to e5 to Magnus Carlsen, he put his knight to the center that controls a lot of vital square against the enemy's camp. So the black here tries to eliminate that strong knight with knight to c6, but still there's just simple rook a to d1 with two attackers to this rook with only one defender. So Levan here cover the d file, but still there is just simple king to h1, a prophylactic move, because there is an open check on the knight f3 or knight to e2, having two attackers to this rook with only one defender. So after the move b5, this is actually an inaccurate move for the black. The black here, for example, after king h1, should play h5 so that he can move his rook to this h6 and help the position to defend with his rook on h1, and just like a manual castling in this position. So for example, after queen to d3, rook h6, b4, and after rook to e6, we shall see in this position now that all of the pieces of the black is actually active, and still he has an extra pawn on the board. So the black here has an advantage. So going back, for example, after b5 of Levan, Magnus Carlsen, he plays queen to d3, and after h5, but this h5 move is actually too late for this position, because after the insertion of the b5, it leaves now the c6. So Magnus Carlsen here exploit that matter, for example, after knight to c6, attacking the queen, and after queen b6, but there is the simple knight to e7, again attacking the rook and penetrating the position with a lot of control to the vital square of the enemy's camp. And Levan here play rook to d8, tries to defend the position. But for example, after knight f5, again Levan here commit a huge mistake after playing queen to g6, leaving this c7 to be undefended. So after knight f5 of Magnus Carlsen, Levan here should play bishop f6 and tries to defend the c7 square with his queen against the bishop h2 of Magnus Carlsen. For example, after bishop e5, trying to have some exchanges, but there's just a simple g4, and after h takes g4, bishop takes e5, rook takes e5, h takes g4 with check, and after king g1, there is just a simple queen b8 for the black, and having a huge winning chances on this position. For example, after on this position after king g1, the black here should not play knight f3 by giving up a check, and although it gives a check and opening some attack for the rook against the white's queen, but after, for example, a simple g takes f3, rook takes d3, rook takes d3, g takes f3, there is just simple rook to d6 with a radical equality, because after rook to g8, the black here cannot actually go for a winning combination because his pieces is actually not on its connection, and the white here should play just king f1, and after rook f8 threatening to mate in 1, but the white here should play again king to g1 rather than king to e1 because there is a check, allowing this queen to be active. So there is just a triple refutation, for example, this position after king f1, rook g8, king f1, rook h8, a draw. So going back, for example, after king to g1, so the black here cannot play knight f3 here with a discover attack because it just leads to a draw. So the white here should play the move queen to b8, because for example after queen to e4, here comes down a knight f3 with a discovered attack to this rook by giving a check, for example on this position. So after g takes f3, here comes down a rook takes d1 check, and after king g2, there is just simple f6 trying to open the diagonal, because this rook covers the diagonal. So as this rook will be moved, then this queen of black will penetrate to h2 and having a winning chances on the board. So after knight f5, Levan Pantsulaia here actually blundered by playing the move queen to g6, and Magnus Carlsen here immediately exploit that bad move by playing bishop to c7, trying to eliminate this black rook that actually defend to the black's king. And after the move rook to d7 for black, here comes now a strong move for Magnus Carlsen by sacrificing his rook to e1, giving a check. And after 29 moves, Levan Pantsulaia here actually resigned and eliminated to the FIDE World Cup 2023. Because on this position there is actually a mate in 4, for example. And the black here is actually forced to grab the rook, but after a capture, there is a simple queen e4 check, and after knight to e6, again there is simple queen check, and after a cover, but still there is rook takes check, and after knight takes, there is a mate on the d8. So going back, for example, after c4, c5, their opening battlefield actually goes for an English opening with a symmetrical variation after knight f3. Although the black here tries an interesting move after g6, although it doesn't actually hurt the position of black because it's still equal after d4, and after bishop g7, d5, d6, it is still okay for black, even though the white here has space advantage after e4, e6. The black here should try the bishop g4 line here on its position to have an equality, or even to win, for example, after bishop takes a1. So after e6, h3, and knight e7, knight c3, h6, and d takes to e6 and bishop takes e6. Still on this position, even though Magnus Carlsen here win a pawn on the d6, but still the white here managed to equalize the opening, but later on the black here actually have some inaccuracies. For example, after playing queen g6, and Magnus Carlsen here wins in just 28 moves. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe.